You know this is a true story because Keanu Reeves plays an angel. I got to watch Good Fortune the other day, and I was looking forward to seeing this film because it looked pretty interesting. It's directed, produced, and starring Aziz Ansari. It also has Keanu Reeves in here, Seth Rogen, Kiki Palmer, and Sandra Oh. Really good actors. They're all in a lot of interesting things, at least for the majority. And man, I sure do have a interesting amount of things to say. So overall, what people need to know is this was published by Lionsgate, which, if you don't know, Lionsgate is a company that makes a lot of movies, sometimes really successful, sometimes really bad. But this year they announced that they wanted to use AI to help make their films. And yeah, everyone knows how great that kind of a decision is. Everyone just loves having AI in their films. Yeah, let's just forget all the talented actors and actresses. Let's just replace them with AI and robots and shit. That's definitely gonna be beneficial to us. We're definitely gonna make money. So first off, fuck Lionsgate, and I'm glad to hear that this move to try to do this has been failing for them. Now the reason why I want to talk about this is because overall, I'm going to talk about this first right now. This movie's message is essentially finding the happiness in your life and still finding the enjoyment in it, even if there are not crazy big things. The main character of this film is very unlucky. He's in a bad place right now. He doesn't really have a house. He's working very crappy jobs. He's just barely getting by, and he doesn't really have anything going for him in his life. But throughout the film, he learns to try to just accept that and still find enjoyment in them. And that's really cool. I really like that message. And also in the film, this is maybe a spoiler, but you can probably understand what's going to happen. He soon realizes that all the wealth and everything he wishes for is not going to truly bring him happiness or what he really wants. And yeah, that's a very important lesson to learn. You know, materialistic things isn't going to make you happy. Hell, you can find that video of Tom Brady even not being fully happy with his life, with all the things that he's done and earned and everything. So there is, proof to this. And Seth Rogen's character plays a very rich person who doesn't really care too much about the lower class or the middle class, but at the end of the film, he eventually learns to try to respect them, make sure they get paid fairly and treated right, and not replace them with AI and robots. And I think that's also really good as a character development. This would all be great and fantastic if it wasn't coming from Lionsgate of all people. Lionsgate can truly, and I mean this with all my heart, actually go fuck themselves. It was more respectable that Megan 2 had this whole message because, they're an indie film, yet they're not really doing anything to change anything because movie companies and almost every company wants to incorporate AI into their systems. But yeah, Megan 2 already told us this message, and now here's Lionsgate being like, hey guys, we should take care of the lower and middle class. We should stop replacing them with AI and robots. Go fuck yourself. What a stupid message to have in this film. And I get it, it was important to the story, but again, coming from Lionsgate, that's very hypocritical. I can maybe see if we try to just ignore Lionsgate overall. Yeah, the message would be pretty sweet, though it's been done to death quite a few times. I actually thought about Soul watching this film. That did a better job of portraying messages about being happy and content with the little things that you have. And again, Megan 2 already did it this year. So to have another movie do this, it's just okay, dude, why? But who knows, movies takes a long time to make, so for all we know, this movie was probably in development for a good amount of time, and they probably wanted to make it before Megan, but still, it doesn't matter. This message has been done already, and I really only thought about other films, and that was annoying. And on top of the fact that this was made and published by Lionsgate, yeah, left a bad taste in my mouth. Now that we're done talking shit about people who published the movie, and yeah, if I said produced, I meant to say published because Lionsgate did not produce this as far as I know. They published it. But yeah, the film itself was fine. I will say I did like the comedy in this film a good amount, though they kept doing the same jokes even at the final third of this film, which kind of felt a bit stupid and annoying. Haha, we get it, taxes are taking a lot of our money, oh haha, everything is unfair to us. They really had this level of comedy throughout the entire film, and it was fine if it was for only, one part of the film or a good section, but the entire film, it kind of felt annoying. I genuinely stopped laughing at all of the jokes at the third or maybe the second half of this film. It's just kind of a shame because that's all they had. There were some other good parts that were really funny. Keanu Reeves being an angel was pretty funny, honestly, and he had one of the funniest roles in this film. And as far as the acting goes, it was just fine. I wouldn't say it's great or anything. Everyone just did a fine job. I really don't think this was one of those films that they were all trying to outperform themselves, because this was a comedy film, so, you know, you can't really ask for much. Keanu Reeves isn't a amazing, spectacular actor, but he is a fine one, and, you know, he did a pretty fine job in this film. Seth Rogen pretty much played himself. I don't even really know, like, Seth Rogen acting in other films. I know there are other films where he's the main character and he plays a very serious character and he tries to act, but this one just felt like it was just Seth Rogen. The man himself, Aziz, was pretty funny, although his acting was kind of also a letdown at times, if not like most of the film. There was times where he just really sounded like he was just reading from a script. He didn't really sound any emotional. I didn't really get anything from him and his character, and I just feel like he was the director and the producer of this film, so he decided he was just going to be the main character. I really did want to see more from him, not just some plain performance. It really just felt emotionless. I don't even know if that's the right word to use. The characters are just characters in a story. There's not really much to latch onto them. Like, yeah, a lot of people can probably relate to Arj's character played by Aziz, but definitely I can't really imagine a lot of people relating to Seth Rogen's character. I will say his character was pretty interesting because he wasn't like too greedy or too evil. He was genuinely a nice person, and he was like, hey, what the fuck, you stole my life. And he wasn't like going out of his way to be too evil about it, and unless he actually had to. Keanu Reeves' character honestly just felt like Keanu Reeves as if he was an angel. He was definitely really funny when he had to become a human and live out the normal life and live human experiences. I guess I should talk about the story. The story is about a guy named Arj, where he's just going through some really bad shit. He's losing a lot of work and possibilities to get money and all that, and he gets an opportunity to be an assistant for Seth Rogen's character, Jeff, funny enough. And he eventually screws this position up, and after a while he meets Keanu Reeves because Keanu's like, hey, I've noticed that you've been having a sucky-ass life, and I want to be a big-ass angel with big-ass wings, so I'm going to do something for you and change your life so you could see how good you really have it. But of course, Arj is like, nah, this life is actually pretty great, I could do whatever I want, and Seth Rogen is stuck with the other life that Arj used to live, and Keanu also gets stripped of his license for doing the thing that he did. So yeah, the story is pretty interesting, though. I imagine a lot of people will probably know how it ends. I also probably gave a good hint anyway, but it's really not worth anything that interesting. The pacing got a little bit weird at times, especially towards the second half of the film. In the beginning, I thought it was pretty well paced, like we got to establish everything and all the characters and all the set pieces. Though as it got towards the end, it kind of just became sporadic and everything. Like, to me, it just felt like some things were just happening a little bit too fast and too close to each other. I don't know, that's just me. There were some weird editing choices where characters were just talking to each other and the camera was either just sitting still or the camera was just panning back and forth to character as they were talking. It wasn't really anything too interesting. They did have some good editing camera moments and shots like that when Arj was being shown his future. That is probably the only thing I could really say about the editing and camera work and all that. This movie didn't really do anything too spectacular, anything too crazy as to stand out. Like, at times it really just felt very cookie cutter as far as like a plot. I believe I mentioned this earlier, but that in the writing, it just felt very cookie cutter, and that with some of the jokes just being way too on the nose, it really just adds to that. Like, it just at times I just had to be like, I get it, movie, I get what you're trying to say, I understand it, trust me, I do. I really don't have a lot to say. This movie didn't really impress me that much. It had a lot of interesting things when it came to its premise. Like, yeah, Keanu Reeves being an angel trying to help this guy see how good he used to have it and helping out another character who has to now struggle and survive. It can be pretty funny, though I feel like this movie didn't really do anything that special, and it's weird because this movie was getting a good amount of high scores from people, and I really don't understand why. I will say this is probably the most basic, most simple movie I've seen, and I feel like, yeah, its comedy was good, but it got way too overstayed, if that makes sense. I didn't really vibe with any of the characters, especially Arj. He was kind of an asshole at times, and actually for the majority of the film he was very selfish. I didn't really get to talk about Keke Palmer. She pretty much represents like the everyday citizen who's trying to fight for a difference, and she's also this love interest for Arj, and they do have some good chemistry, I feel like. But also in the movie, Arj really just cares about himself overall, at least for most of the time. He, of course, does learn to appreciate those things, and like I said, it just really reminds me of other films that does the same type of thing with characters. But yeah, overall, I can really just say that this movie just is pretty simple, pretty simplistic. It's just fine. It's really not worth seeing. I don't understand some of the scores that it was getting, but hey, that's just their take. For me, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I just think it just did fine, really. It's just whatever. I'm not gonna say it's like totally unwatchable, obviously. It's not a bad movie. It's just very simple, and nothing really stood out to me. I feel like that's just overall what I have to say. Just simple and nothing stood out. But of course, that's just my take, my opinion. I want to know what other people are saying for this movie. I especially want to know how they feel about this movie, trying to be like, hey guys, be happy and content with what you have. You should appreciate what you have because it's little. But don't worry, we have a character in this film who's also really rich, who's definitely now going to start making a difference for people and not replace them with AI and robots, even though the person or the people who published this film is trying to do that. Though I will say it's pretty much failing for Lionsgate when it comes to that. Maybe if it had a better message, I would have liked it a little bit more, and if it had a different message altogether, that would have been fine. But again, you can't really do much with this type of premise. That's all I want to say. Everyone, you have a great rest of your day.